Hey there, sleepyheads! Welcome back to the quiet corners of history where we gently unravel the fascinating threads of the past, perfect for a calming journey into the night. Tonight we're stepping far, far back in time to a period where beauty wasn't just skin deep, but a profound language of status survival and even silent rebellion, the medieval world. Allow your mind to softly drift as we journey back to an era where the very perception of beauty was woven into the harsh realities of daily existence and the rigid tapestry of social structures. You awaken not to the chirping of birds or the gentle hum of modern conveniences, but to the distant, muffled sounds of a medieval world stirring to life. Perhaps it's the lowing of a cow, the clatter of a cart on uneven cobblestones, or the distant rhythmic thud of a blacksmith's hammer. This is your reality now, and as you stretch, perhaps feeling the rough texture of your linen shift, you begin to understand that this world operates on rules entirely different from your own. One of the very first things you'd grasp often without a single word being spoken is that your position in this complex social hierarchy is immediately visibly apparent. It's etched not just into your clothing or the size of your dwelling, but astonishingly into the very hue of your skin. In this medieval world, the bizarre, ambitious, and sometimes eyebrow-free realm of beauty standards you're about to navigate is fundamentally shaped by an immutable social hierarchy. You're not born into a world of fluid social mobility. Rather, your destiny is largely fixed from birth. And what better way to signal your inherent place than through your appearance? If you are of noble birth, you will quickly learn that looking pale is not merely an aesthetic preference. It is a profound social flex. This is a nonverbal announcement to everyone you encounter. I am too rich to ever see the sun. Your translucent, almost ethereal complexion whispers tales of a life untouched by the fields, unmarred by the elements, a life of leisure and indoor pursuits, starkly distinguishing you from the tanned, weathered visages of the working classes. Conversely, if your skin bears the kiss of the sun darkened by hours spent under the unforgiving sky, it serves as an immediate, unmistakable indicator of outdoor manual labour and, by extension, poverty. For the nobility, the sight of a sun-kissed peasant elicits a subtle yet palpable gasp. It's a visible, inescapable mark of your low position within the rigid feudal system. Your appearance becomes a living, breathing testament to your daily struggle, a stark contrast to the effortless grace of the aristocracy. Even if you tried to lighten your skin, the resources, the knowledge, the sheer time required would be beyond your grasp. This leads directly to another cornerstone of medieval aesthetics. The ideal male appearance, particularly for nobility, was to be nobly unbothered, or hot without trying. You would not see noblemen fretting over elaborate grooming routines in the way you might imagine. Their attractiveness was seen as an inherent birthright, a natural emanation of their aristocratic blood. It wasn't something earned through effort or cultivation, as it might be for a commoner trying to improve their lot, but rather a God-given mark of their elevated status. This subtly reinforces the idea that nobility isn't just a title, it's a state of being, an intrinsic superiority that manifests in every aspect, including physical appeal. And for women of high status, nothing screamed, "I am important," quite like the towering hennin. Imagine wearing a cone on your head, sometimes reaching upwards of 2 feet, meticulously draped with silken veils. This was not merely fashion, it was a social ladder you wore. The height of your hennin directly correlated with your perceived status, literally elevating you within the visual landscape of the social hierarchy. It was a physical manifestation of your family's wealth and prestige, a constant visible reminder to everyone around you of your lofty, often untouchable position. You couldn't blend in with a hennin, you stood out, a beacon of nobility. You quickly discover that this visible distinction, this constant performance of your elevated status, comes at a profound cost, one that few in your comfortable modern life would ever consider paying. The stark, almost chilling reality of medieval nobility is encapsulated in a choice that might make your stomach lurch. The option between dying slowly from the toxic beauty products you apply to your skin, or the unthinkable social degradation of being mistaken for a peasant. Imagine the profound fear, the existential dread associated with blurring those rigid class lines. Your ancestors, it seems, understood that jeopardizing the entire family's standing simply wasn't an option. So you might endure the slow, insidious poisoning of lead makeup, accepting it as a grim but necessary part of maintaining your noble identity. The alternative, losing your visible distinction, was simply too terrifying to contemplate. This brings us to the very tangible economic barrier that beauty presented in this era. The pursuit of that coveted, almost ghostly paleness wasn't just a matter of aesthetic preference. It was an undeniable economic luxury. You see, achieving skin as white as fresh milk required not just desire, but the very real means to avoid sun exposure. This meant you couldn't, for example, spend your days toiling in the fields under the harsh glare of the sun. You needed servants, resources, and time that freed you from outdoor labour. Furthermore, it demanded the financial resources to afford the expensive, often incredibly toxic beauty products that promised that ethereal glow. Think of white lead powder, perhaps even crushed pearls mixed into your concoctions. These weren't items you'd pick up from a village merchant unless you were among the privileged few. You begin to understand that beauty practices in the medieval world were deeply stratified by wealth. Ingredients like mercury-based rouge or vibrant red lead, or the rich deep cinnabar for lips and cheeks were costly commodities. Their very presence in your personal care routine loudly announced your financial standing. These weren't things a commoner would ever dream of owning, let alone applying daily. It makes you realize that every pot of powder, every vial of pigment was a direct testament to your economic power, highlighting the vast chasm between the opulent lives of the nobility and the harsh subsistence of the common folk. The willingness of the nobility to risk their health, even their very lives for the sake of beauty, wasn't born of mere vanity as you might understand it today. Instead, it underscored beauty's role as a vital social investment. In a society where your appearance was a constant public declaration of your status, maintaining that visual distinction was absolutely necessary for preserving your perceived value and standing within the era's economic and social framework. You had to look the part not just for personal pride, but for the very survival and honour of your lineage. It was a calculated risk, a testament to how deeply intertwined personal appearance was with one's entire identity and future. And as for the noblemen, their ideal effortless appeal wasn't achieved through expensive potions or painstaking routines, but was directly linked to inherited wealth, the land and a falcon that defined their status. Their attractiveness was intrinsically tied to their economic inheritance, signalling that their appeal wasn't cultivated, but simply was a natural extension of their birthright. This meant the very foundation of their attractive image wasn't about personal grooming expenses, but about the vast ancestral lands they possessed, the hunting birds they commanded, the inherent superiority their lineage provided. It was a subtle yet powerful visual cue that reinforced their dominance without them having to lift a finger, making you keenly aware of the deeply ingrained nature of power and privilege. As you navigate this medieval landscape, you quickly come to understand that nature itself is an unyielding force, a constant, often brutal presence that shapes everything, including the very perception of what is beautiful and what is not. This isn't a world where food is abundant year-round, or where a slight illness means a trip to the doctor for a quick fix. Here the elements, the seasons, and the spectre of disease are always lurking, casting long shadows over daily life. You learn very quickly that even the ideal human form subtly shifts in response to these existential threats. Consider for a moment the devastating impact of famine or plague, which were not abstract concepts but terrifyingly real possibilities that could sweep through your community with shocking speed. During such periods, the idea of thinness, which in some later eras might be admired, became a chilling red flag. If your frame became too gaunt, if your cheeks hollowed out and your eyes sank deep into their sockets, it wasn't a sign of delicate beauty. It was a clear signal of active dying. Your body would be screaming a silent warning that you were succumbing to starvation or illness, a terrifying contrast to the prevailing beauty ideal. That ideal surprisingly favoured a small hint of roundness. This wasn't about being overtly plump, but possessing just enough subtle softness around your edges to convey robust health, a visible testament to your ability to survive winter's harsh realities and the ever-present threat of scarcity. It meant you had enough food, enough vitality to weather the storms of disease and hunger. You also become acutely aware of the pervasive health realities that touch almost every aspect of life. Your eyes often irritated by smoke from indoor fires, by dust, or by seasonal allergies, which of course had no name back then, just constant irritation, are likely to be bloodshot allergy-ridden. The clear, sparkling eyes you might idealise are a rarity, a fleeting gift. And as for smiles, well, you'll see fewer of those in portraits for good reason. The teeth you encounter, perhaps even your own, are actively terrifying. This isn't just about staining, it's about decay-missing teeth and the constant discomfort that comes from a diet heavy in coarse grains and lacking modern dental hygiene. These widespread ailments underscore the harsh, everyday health realities that made idealised features like clear eyes and perfectly white teeth exceptional rarities far removed from the uncomfortable truth of pervasive oral issues and general bodily struggles. And then there's the unavoidable truth of daily breath, halitosis. The medical term you might use today simply wasn't considered shocking in the medieval world. Why? Because quite frankly, everyone had bad breath to some degree. It was a universal condition, a shared reality stemming from diet, rudimentary hygiene, and common ailments. You'd quickly realise that people had much bigger problems like surviving winter, or avoiding the next plague, or simply finding enough food to put on the table. In this context, worrying about the freshness of your breath seems almost comically trivial. Aesthetic concerns such as a perfect smile or pleasant breath fade into insignificance when placed against the more pressing, immediate and constant battle against nature's fury and the fight for basic survival. Your appearance in this sense is less about personal vanity and more about a visible testament to your sheer endurance. As you begin to navigate the complex social landscape, you'll find that these fundamental realities of health and survival profoundly impact how beauty is not just perceived, but how it is performed, often through subtle, unspoken cues. From the grim realities of survival and the stark divisions of class, you now find yourself amidst the intricate dance of medieval social interaction, where every glance, every gesture, and even the subtle hue of your skin carries profound meaning. You quickly learn that your appearance is not merely a personal reflection, but a constant non-verbal dialogue speaking volumes about your status, your intentions, and your very moral fibre. Let's return for a moment to the silent language you've already encountered, the pervasive preference for paleness. You realise now that looking pale wasn't just a physical trait, it was a deliberate non-verbal communication, a constant social flex in an era that prized understated power. Your lack of sun exposure wasn't an accident. It was a testament to a life lived indoors, a life of leisure and comfort, quietly yet emphatically announcing, "I am too rich to ever see the sun." This visual statement stood in stark contrast to the rough, sun-kissed skin of the labourers you might glimpse conveying your elite status without a single word. You don't need to brag about your wealth. Your complexion does it for you. And then there is the delicate art of expression, a tightrope walk indeed. You observe that the ideal smile, particularly for women, is not the wide, joyous grin you might see today. Instead, it's a demure, closed-lip smile, hinting at a preference for contemplation over overt expression. Too much open mirth, too direct an eye contact, and you risked being misconstrued as bold or worse, suspiciously French. Imagine the social anxiety of self-presentation where a simple smile could lead to judgment. You learn quickly to keep your expressions contained, perhaps a slight upturn of the lips that suggests inner serenity rather than outward gaiety. It's a quiet command, a subtle indicator of your refined nature. But what about adding a touch of colour? You might be tempted to enhance your natural flush, but you'd tread carefully. A subtle blush or a gentle rose hue on your cheeks was permissible, even desirable, as it conveyed youth and fertility without appearing overtly vain. It served as a delicate social cue, a soft hint at virtue and health precisely calibrated to avoid the perilous accusation of excessive self-adornment. It's the kind of glow you might get after a brisk walk, not the kind that screams, "I spent an hour with my cosmetic kit." Because make no mistake, overt displays of beauty such as a too visible blush could trigger immediate and severe social judgment. You might find yourself whispered about risking accusations of imitating prostitutes, a label that could destroy your reputation and that of your family. This underscores severe social risks associated with misinterpreting or defying beauty's unspoken rules. It's a fine line you walk where too much effort is worse than none at all. And if by some chance someone compliments your glow, your rosy cheeks, or the clear shine in your eyes, the expected response is not gracious acceptance. Oh no. You're expected to offer a dismissive denial, perhaps to mutter something about the wind. This strategic denial reinforces the ideal of effortless, unacknowledged beauty and subtly showcases humility, a crucial trait for social acceptance. To accept the compliment too readily would be seen as vanity, a cardinal sin, in a society that valued inner purity above all else. Beyond the visual, there's an entire olfactory dimension to social acceptance, especially in an era of limited hygiene. You learn quickly that the use of pomanders and other scented items is a critical non-verbal strategy for scent management. These small, fragrant balls or pouches filled with strongly scented herbs and spices become your portable smell shields. Controlling your personal aroma influences social proximity and perceived refinement, making the subtle scent you carry a powerful silent social statement. Imagine encountering someone who has clearly overlooked this crucial detail. The unpleasantness would keep you at a respectful, perhaps even disdainful distance. Even your eyes, the windows to your soul, are subject to expressive constraints. Too much direct eye contact could be deemed bold, flirtatious, or suspiciously French, and you certainly don't want to be suspiciously French. Yet too little contact risked you seeming shifty or possessed, a terrifying thought in a superstitious age. The favoured approach is an occasional glance from beneath lowered lids, embodying piety and inner virtue, often accompanied by a hint of melancholy. You want to appear thoughtful, serene, perhaps burdened by the weight of the world, but certainly not brazen. Ultimately, for the nobility, both male and female beauty was not to appear tried for, but effortlessly inherent. It was a kind of medieval version of hot without trying. Your appeal communicated your intrinsic noble status, elevating you socially, not because of your efforts, but because of your very essence. It was an unspoken testament to your divine right and your destined place in the world, a concept you will see reinforced in every aspect of your elevated existence. You've learned that for nobility, beauty should appear effortless, a natural extension of your birthright. Yet as you delve deeper into the daily realities of medieval life, you uncover a striking paradox. Achieving that very effortlessness often required an extreme, almost theatrical performance. This is particularly true when it comes to the revered ideal of pale skin, a standard that goes far beyond simply avoiding the sun. It becomes a conscious daily act of defiance against the very notion of robust health associated with an outdoor active life. Imagine your pursuit of what is considered the epitome of beauty, translucent porcelain with vascular undertones. This isn't merely light skin, It's a skin so delicate, so untouched, that the blue veins beneath are visibly hinted at, almost like a map of your refined, fragile existence. To achieve this profound performance, you would embark on a daily ritual that seems to your modern sensibilities utterly horrifying. You would meticulously apply white lead powder to your face neck, and sometimes even your hands. This substance, known even then to be perilous, was the secret to that coveted signature corpse chic glow. It was a deliberate choice, a conscious rejection of the ruddy sun-kissed complexion that marked the common labourer. You were in essence trying to mimic the appearance of someone too delicate to engage in any form of physical exertion, someone whose very existence was a testament to leisure and indoor confinement. The cost, as you might already suspect, was immense, not just financially but personally. You would be aware, perhaps vaguely at first, then acutely, of the toll this toxic regimen took on your body. Your skin, once naturally supple, might begin to flake blister, or even in more severe cases start to fall off in small discrete chunks. You might experience chronic fatigue, a persistent weariness that no amount of rest seemed to cure. This wasn't just a cosmetic choice, it was a commitment that could lead to disfigurement, chronic illness, and even premature death. Yet the social pressure to maintain this ethereal appearance was so overwhelming that you would endure these physical sacrifices, understanding them as necessary for your place in society. It's a chilling thought, isn't it, to willingly invite poison into your skin for the sake of social standing. To further enhance this illusion of extreme delicacy, you might take this performance to an even more unsettling level. Imagine for a moment the meticulous process of painting faint blue veins onto your arms and chest using blue pigment. This wasn't merely makeup, it was an artistic endeavour aimed at simulating an almost ethereal fragility, an extreme delicacy that hinted at a life barely tethered to earthly concerns. This haunting visual, so specific and deliberate, vividly illustrates the artificial and unsettling lengths people went to for this fragile appearance. It makes you wonder how much discomfort, how much quiet suffering was hidden beneath that porcelain facade. This aesthetic was so deeply ingrained in the cultural consciousness that it permeated art and literature. You might hear romantic poems read aloud perhaps by a minstrel in the Great Hall, describing women as pale as milk, white as snow, and once one as the moon in winter. These lines weren't flowery exaggerations, they were direct reflections of the prevailing beauty ideals, equating paleness with an almost otherworldly, non-corporeal beauty. It was a beauty that seemed to transcend the physical, linking it to purity, spirituality, and a detached grace that set the nobility apart. Your pale skin wasn't just admired, it was immortalized in verse a symbol of everything refined and noble. And this focus on the upper part of the body, particularly the face and head, leads us to another fascinating and perhaps equally unsettling cultural discipline, the deliberate reshaping of the forehead. Having perfected your ghostly pallor, your attention, or rather the society's gaze, would then shift upward towards your forehead. You'd soon learn that a tall, smooth, uninterrupted forehead was not just admired, it was deemed an architectural marvel of the medieval face. This particular feature carried immense symbolic weight, signifying intelligence, elegance, and even a divine connection. Imagine a canvas vast and unblemished, suggesting a mind devoted to scholarly pursuits, spiritual contemplation, or the noble art of governance rather than the toil and sweat of physical labour. It was a visual declaration of your intellectual and spiritual superiority. Contemporary portraits, if you were to see them, though they might look rather strange to your modern eyes, vividly depict women with foreheads so vast you could host a joust on them. While this is of course an amusing exaggeration, it powerfully underscores the cultural significance of this feature. This exaggerated visual didn't just hint at intellectual prowess, it shouted it. It suggested a serene, detached demeanour, a life free from mundane concerns, a face that invited contemplation rather than casual interaction. It was a forehead designed to project wisdom, tranquility, and an almost unearthly calm, a stark contrast to the furrowed brows of those who spent their days in strenuous thought or physical strain. To achieve this alabaster high-domed glory, a deliberate visual choice emphasizing purity and a stark, unblemished facial expanse, you would embark on another rigorous aesthetic discipline, the active removal of your eyebrows. Yes, you read that correctly. Eyebrows. Those natural frames for your eyes were considered unnecessary facial clutter. Imagine the meticulous, perhaps painful process of plucking or even shaving these hairs away. This wasn't a quick tweeze. This was a complete, deliberate eradication, leaving your forehead as smooth and vast as a polished marble slab. The aesthetic intention was clear to remove any visual distraction that might detract from the majestic sweep of the forehead, creating an almost angelic, otherworldly countenance. The sensory detail here is particularly striking, the resulting expressionless eyes framed by nothing but skin. In medieval art created a look that was simultaneously serene and slightly alien. You might find it unsettling, even a little unsettling, to behold such a visage. It emphasized a detachment from earthly concerns, a spiritual focus that seemed to elevate the wearer beyond the mundane. The absence of eyebrows removed the natural indicators of emotion, lending an air of enigmatic calm, an almost blank slate upon which virtues like piety and intellect could be projected. It was a face designed not to convey human emotion but divine stillness. And while you might focus on the face, the meticulous nature of medieval beauty extended to other prominent features, none more so than your hair. Blonde hair often linked conceptually to the Virgin Mary, and her perceived purity was the medieval gold standard. You'd see it admired, whispered about, and actively pursued, even if your natural hair colour was far from golden. This wasn't a trip to the salon for a quick highlight. This was a serious, time-consuming undertaking. To achieve this coveted shade, you might spend hours sunbasking, exposing your hair to the sun's rays, often with homemade concoctions applied to assist the lightening process. This required the patience of a nun and the skin of a salamander, as you would need to protect your skin from the very sun you were using to lighten your hair. Imagine sitting for hours perhaps under a broad-brimmed hat with a hole cut out for your hair, or even using specially designed caps that would allow only your hair to be exposed. The sheer dedication to this ideal speaks volumes. And here's a detail that might make you wince, but underscores the lengths to which individuals went. Some recipes also included urine, which was thought to help lift colour. While perhaps unsavoury to your modern sensibilities, this unsentimental detail highlights the desperation and dedication involved in pursuing this coveted hair shade. It's a testament to the fact that beauty in this era was not just about aesthetics. It was a blend of folk wisdom, persistent effort, and a willingness to endure discomfort, even disgust, for the sake of conforming to a powerful ideal. This relentless pursuit of a specific hair colour, however, was just one facet of how the entire body was viewed as a canvas for class performance. Beyond the meticulous sculpting of your forehead and the pursuit of golden locks, you would discover that the entire female figure was viewed as a canvas for class performance. The ideal female body in the medieval era wasn't about athletic prowess or robust strength. It was described as slim, soft, and slightly ethereal, like someone who lived on honey water courtly poems and perhaps one fig a week. This wasn't a casual preference. It was a carefully cultivated image of fragility, explicitly designed to visibly distinguish nobility from the robust muscular physique of working-class individuals. You see, a body hardened by physical labour was a telltale sign of a lower station, something to be avoided at all costs if you aspired to or were born into the elite. Imagine the deliberate, almost painstaking effort to appear delicate, to cultivate a softness that hinted at a life free from exertion. The goal was to appear delicate, demure, and possibly recovering from a fainting spell. This wasn't a weakness. It was a physical manifestation of leisure, a tangible absence of any suggestion of strength or physical labour. Your very posture, the way you moved, would reinforce this image. You might cultivate a gentle stoop, a slightly listless demeanour that suggested a body too refined for earthly strains. It was a subtle yet powerful performance that solidified your position in the rigid social hierarchy, ensuring that no one could mistake you for someone who had ever wielded a hoe or carried a heavy load. Within this carefully constructed image of frailty, your eyes held a particular power even when framed by nothing but skin. Eyes were seen as silent power, idealized as large, clear, and soulful, hinting at virtue and a gentle melancholy. They were the windows to an inner world of piety and refined emotion, often enhanced not by overt cosmetics but by clever tricks of strategic lighting, such as standing near a flickering candle, which would cast a soft glow and make your pupils dilate, giving them mysterious depth. And of course, the ever-present downward gaze and embodiment of modesty and inner virtue was crucial. You would rarely meet a gaze directly preferring to cast your eyes downwards, perhaps towards your clasped hands, suggesting humility and deep thought. In a curious, almost morbid twist, the admiration for slightly teary eyes was also prevalent, seen as a sign of emotional sensitivity or profound piety. You might even, if you were truly committed to this aesthetic attempt to achieve this look, by staring directly into smoke. While this sounds agonizing, it highlights the performed nature of emotional expression and its intricate link to beauty. Your tears weren't necessarily born of genuine sorrow. They could be a carefully orchestrated performance enhancing your image as a person of deep feeling and spiritual devotion. It was about creating an impression, a subtle narrative that resonated with the prevailing ideals of the time, making you a paragon of refined, almost suffering beauty. Now, as you consider these detailed physical performances, you must also understand the powerful, often terrifying spiritual frameworks and pervasive superstitions that underpinned every aspect of medieval life, including the very concept of beauty. Your physical appearance was not just a matter of earthly admiration. It was intimately connected to your spiritual standing. Beauty, therefore, was a constant moral tightrope. On one hand, physical beauty was often considered a sign of divine favour, a blessing bestowed upon you by God. But here's the perilous catch: acknowledging or enhancing it too much was immediately categorised as a sin of vanity. This forced individuals like you onto a treacherous moral tightrope, where outward appearance could either reflect inner purity and God's grace, or be deemed a trap set by the devil himself. You could be blessed by beauty, but simultaneously cursed by the temptation to take pride in it. The Church in particular was keenly watchful of such temptations, adding another layer of scrutiny to your every aesthetic choice. The ever-present watchful eye of the Church added a profound layer of anxiety to your every aesthetic choice. You would quickly become aware of the ecclesiastical scrutiny of appearance. The Church was deeply wary of women smearing colour on their faces, viewing such acts with profound suspicion. Unless it was done with an almost painful degree of humility, or by nobility for purposes of displaying their God-given status, which was often given a pass, the application of cosmetics could be seen as an act of deception, a masking of God's natural creation. This suspicion underscored the deep theological implications woven into beauty practices and the constant chilling fear of damnation. Your rouge wasn't just makeup. It could be an express ticket to eternal damnation, a literal tool of the devil in the eyes of a devout clergyman. And then there was the terrifying realm of superstitious interpretations of exaggerated beauty. In a world where even bad weather could get you burned at the stake, you learn to be incredibly cautious about anything deemed unnatural or excessive. Unnatural or excessive beauty could be viewed not as a blessing, but as an illusion, a sorceress's disguise, a glamour conjured by witches. Imagine the terror of being accused of witchcraft simply because your complexion was too perfect, your eyes too captivating, or your hair too unnaturally golden. Such accusations carry potentially life-threatening consequences, linking aesthetic choices directly to the pervasive fear of the supernatural and the brutal reality of the justice system. You might strive for beauty, but you'd always do so with a quiet prayer that you weren't attracting the wrong kind of attention. Conversely, the societal doctrine could be incredibly cruel. Being plain or ill-featured could imply moral deficiency, misfortune, or even divine disappointment. It was a devastating judgment, suggesting that your outward appearance was not merely a matter of genetics, but a reflection of your inner spiritual worth and fate. If you were born without conventional beauty, you carried a heavier burden perceived as less favoured by God, perhaps even subtly hinting at some unseen sin. This societal belief cast a long dark shadow over those who were not blessed with pleasing features, impacting how they were perceived within their community, and even within their own families. It was a constant unspoken judgment that you simply had to live with. Adding to the complexity, the prevalence of saints and angels in religious art, often depicted with smooth foreheads and absent eyebrows, subtly reinforced these features as symbols of purity and heavenly grace. These angelic archetypes didn't just adorn church walls. They influenced the cultural perception of ideal beauty, subtly equating these features with spiritual perfection. When you removed your eyebrows, you weren't just following a fashion trend. You were in a way mimicking the divine, aspiring to a visual form of celestial purity. It was a powerful, unspoken connection between the aesthetic and the sacred. Finally, for married women, there was the profound and undeniable connection between hair concealment and moral standing. Once you were married, your long, often admired hair was immediately banished from public view. Covering your hair was not just about modesty. It was fundamentally tied to your morality and virtue. Exposed hair, particularly if it was loose or flowing, risked comparing one to a lady of the night, reflecting deep societal anxieties about female sexuality and its spiritual implications. Your hair, once a strategic asset in the marriage market, now became a symbol of your domesticity, your fidelity, and your submission to societal norms. It was a physical manifestation of a profound shift in your identity, from an individual seeking a mate to a wife upholding the honour of her family. This constraint, however, held different implications for those yet to be wed. If you were an unmarried woman in the medieval world, your long, often flowing hair held a completely different, almost strategic significance. Within the bounds of modesty, of course, your hair was a strategic asset in the marriage market. You would be encouraged to let it grow, to keep it clean, and to display it perhaps braided or softly flowing as a visual signal to potential suitors. Your long, loose hair symbolized purity and innocence, a visible testament to your youth and untouched status. It was a beacon, a subtle advertisement of your eligibility, actively encouraged as a vital component in attracting a desirable match. Unlike your married sisters, your hair was your crowning glory, a public declaration of your availability and virtue. But once you uttered your vows, the landscape of your personal expression shifted dramatically. The immediate banishment of your golden mane from public view, hidden under layers of veils and head wraps, symbolized a profound societal shift in your agency and personal expression. This wasn't merely a change in fashion. It reflected a loss of individual allure for the sake of collective family honour. Your identity, once somewhat defined by your individual beauty, now became subsumed into your role as a wife and mother serving the greater good of your husband's lineage. Your personal beauty was no longer for public display. It was for your husband alone, if at all. Your head coverings, such as veils, wimples, nets, and coifs, were not merely functional items to keep your hair tidy. They represented a veritable medieval wardrobe of modesty. These layers of fabric transformed you into a pious, well-bundled sandwich, prioritizing societal expectations over individual display. Imagine the sensation of being swathed, almost cocooned in these layers, restricting your movement, obscuring your features, and visually reinforcing your new role as a virtuous, demure wife. It It was a physical manifestation of your moral obligations, a constant reminder of the societal expectations placed upon you. However, despite the overwhelming emphasis on modesty, you would observe that noblewomen's headwear often became surprisingly elaborate, transforming these symbols of piety into elaborate displays of wealth. While the underlying principle was concealment, the execution could be stunningly opulent. These head coverings might be adorned with embroidered gold thread, meticulously crafted into starched geometric shapes, or even feature silken cages for their braids that incorporated jewels and tiny bells. Your modest headwear thus became a paradoxical blend of piety and ostentation, transforming personal adornment into a subtle yet powerful display of family wealth and status. The jingle of tiny bells attached to your hennin as you moved would announce your presence and your family's prosperity long before you entered a room. And despite the rigid strictures, human nature, as you know, always finds a way. You might spot in quieter moments subtle rebellions against these strictures. Perhaps a noble woman might intentionally let a little curl slip out from beneath her wimple, a tiny, almost imperceptible defiance of the complete concealment expected of her. Or perhaps she would choose translucent veils that, while technically covering her hair, allowed a tantalizing hint of its colour to show through in certain light. These were medieval loopholes, small acts of defiance that hinted at constrained desires for personal expression within the tightly controlled framework of family and marriage. They were quiet whispers of individuality in a world that demanded conformity, a testament to the enduring human desire to express oneself, no matter how subtly, even in the face of rigid social norms. These subtle acts, however, would carry significant weight within the prevailing clan identity. You soon realize that in this deeply communal society, your individual appearance is never truly just about you. It's intrinsically linked to the weight of clan identity, often referred to as E. Your personal aesthetic choices, your very physical presentation become a direct reflection on your entire family, carrying implications that resonate far beyond your personal vanity. This makes every decision about your appearance a strategic one, a silent negotiation with the unyielding force of your inherited social standing. The primary visual marker, as you've already experienced, is the profound statement made by your skin tone. The implicit rule is clear: the paler you were, the higher your perceived status. This isn't just a casual observation. It establishes beauty as an immediate visible indicator of your birthright and your fixed position within the social hierarchy. Your complexion tells a story before you even utter a word, broadcasting your family's leisure wealth and distance from manual labour. This has profound implications for your family's reputation, as your skin literally wears their prestige. A child with sun-kissed skin in a noble household would be a source of quiet shame, a visible failure to uphold the clan's image. This obsession with paleness culminates in what you might consider an existential threat, the fear of being mistaken for a peasant. For nobility, this isn't just a social faux pas. It's a profound degradation that could ripple through generations. The stark choice of enduring slow poisoning from lead makeup, rather than being mistaken for a peasant, highlights the immense fear and social degradation associated with blurring class lines. It wasn't about personal discomfort. It was about jeopardizing the entire family's standing, undermining their claims to status, land, and influence. Your physical appearance was a shield protecting your clan from the ultimate shame of being perceived as common. Furthermore, any misstep in your aesthetic presentation carried a severe reputational cost not just for you, but for your entire lineage. Appearing too visible, with blush, or being accused of imitating prostitutes by your cosmetic choices could severely damage not only your personal standing, but also the entire family's reputation. This powerfully reinforces how individual actions reflected on the collective clan identity. Your vanity or perceived lack of humility wasn't a private affair. It was a public scandal that could cast a long shadow over your parents, your siblings, and your future descendants. The whispers would follow your family for years, diminishing their marital prospects and their social standing. On the flip side, for noblemen, their effortless beauty was the very embodiment of clan honour. The ideal of appearing hot without trying, inheriting their appeal through land and a falcon, reinforced the honour and prestige of their lineage. Their inherent attractiveness isn't a result of personal grooming. It's a consequence of their birth into a powerful family. This projected an image of inherent superiority rather than laboured self-improvement, further cementing the idea that their noble status was not just inherited but visually manifested in their very being. It was a physical testament to their clan's enduring power and influence. And then there was the peril of outshining the established order. You'd internalise a strict unspoken warning to never look more attractive than the local lord's wife. This wasn't merely a piece of etiquette. It underscored the dangerous social consequences of perceived challenges to authority. To appear more beautiful, more adorned, or more captivating than the leading lady of the region could be seen as an act of insubordination, a direct threat to the power structure. Such a transgression could result in severe reputation-destroying outcomes for individuals and their families. It could mean being ostracised, having marriage alliances crumble, or even facing far graver repercussions. Your beauty in this context was a potential weapon, and you had to wield it with extreme caution. Finally, the pervasive belief that outward appearance reflected inner character meant that ugliness could be interpreted as punishment or divine disappointment. This cruel societal doctrine cast a shadow over one's moral and social standing, impacting how the individual was perceived within their clan and community. If you were deemed plain or ill-favoured, it wasn't just bad luck. It implied a lack of virtue, a flaw in your soul that manifested outwardly. This belief created immense pressure to conform, to strive for the aesthetic ideals, not just for personal pride, but for the very honour and spiritual standing of your entire family. The weight of your clan's identity rests quite literally on your face. You've grappled with the invisible weight of your clan's identity, a burden that shapes your very perception of beauty. But now you must descend from those abstract social hierarchies into the very tangible, often uncomfortable realities of your daily existence. Your home, the shelter that protects you from the elements, is far more than just a roof over your head. It's a living, breathing entity that profoundly impacts your personal appearance and the measures you must take to maintain any semblance of the era's beauty standards. Step inside a basic medieval home, perhaps your own, or that of a slightly less affluent neighbour. You immediately notice the distinct lack of what you'd call cleanliness by modern standards. There's no central heating, no sealed windows, and certainly no sophisticated ventilation systems. Instead, the hearth, often in the centre of the main room, is the heart of your dwelling, providing warmth and a place to cook. But with warmth comes smoke. You quickly learn that this smoke, thick and pungent, permeates everything. It clings to the rough-hewn wooden beams of the ceiling, seeps into your clothing, and most notably settles stubbornly into your hair. Imagine the constant faint smell of wood smoke, mingling with the earthy scent of straw on the floor and the ever-present aroma of cooking food. This constant exposure to smoke and other harsh elements necessitates a practical yet aesthetically driven solution for married women like you. Your hair, once a symbol of your unmarried virtue, is now a magnet for daily grime. To shield it from the omnipresent dust soot and cooking odours, you adopt protective headwear as a matter of routine. Layers of veils and wimples become your second skin, an essential part of your daily attire. These aren't mere fashion accessories. They're practical armour designed to enclose and protect your hair, preserving its cleanliness, or at least its appearance of cleanliness, and maintaining the desired modest aesthetic. You can almost feel the fabric, rough linen, or softer wool swathing your head, keeping your hair out of sight and hopefully out of mind. The sensation of wearing these layered head coverings is something you quickly grow accustomed to, even if they initially feel restrictive. You become a pious, well-bundled sandwich, as it were encased in fabric. This physical sensation vividly conveys the sense of physical restriction and warmth, a common sensory experience for women throughout their day. You learn to move with a slightly different grace, accounting for the layers that frame your face and obscure your neck. This constant encasement isn't just about protection. It's a silent commitment to the prevailing beauty ideals of modesty and purity for a married woman, demonstrating your adherence to societal expectations, even if it means sacrificing some personal comfort. Despite the practical function, the underlying imperative is always aesthetic. Even though your hair is hidden, it is still implicitly expected to be kept tidy and clean underneath. The layers prevent it from becoming visibly dishevelled or acquiring the telltale sheen of grime that would betray your noble status. You're not just covering your hair, you're managing an unseen asset, ensuring that even in the gritty reality of a medieval home, you uphold the standards of your station. This constant attention to seemingly minor details in your living conditions subtly shapes your daily routine, emphasizing that even the most mundane aspects of existence are intertwined with the elaborate unspoken rules of medieval beauty. And speaking of physical constraints, your fashion choices extend far beyond your head, directly impacting your very physical form. As you've already noted, the ideal female figure of this era leaned towards the delicate willowy form, a deliberate contrast to the robust strength of the working classes. This wasn't just an image to aspire to. It involved direct physical constraint. You would find yourself engaging in practices like tight lacing and cinching your waistlines, often with garments specifically designed to achieve this coveted silhouette. Imagine the sensation: your ribs shift slightly, your lungs can only expand about halfway, and every deep breath feels a little more constricted than it should. This pursuit of the delicate aesthetic physically constrains women's bodies, directly affecting their comfort and mobility throughout their daily activities. You quickly learn to adapt your movements to move with a more measured, perhaps even slightly constrained grace. Bending, lifting, or any vigorous activity becomes more challenging. This isn't just about fashion, it's about altering your very physiology to fit an ideal. The constant pressure around your midsection, the subtle yet persistent restriction, becomes a background hum to your daily existence. It's a silent reminder that your body too is a canvas for social performance, shaped and moulded not for strength or comfort, but for the visual declaration of your status. And then there's the truly towering fashion statement of the elite, the hennin. These conical hats, which you've heard, could reach upwards of 2 sastiev, often supported by intricate wire frames, presented constant and undeniably practical challenges in your daily life. Imagine navigating your home, or any building for that matter, with such an imposing structure perched atop your head. You would quickly become intimately acquainted with the precise height of every doorway, every low-hanging chandelier. The constant fear of literal collisions with door frames would become a small nagging anxiety. Beyond the logistical hurdles, these towering hennins came with a tangible physical cost. You would likely experience persistent neck strain, a dull ache that settled at the base of your skull from constantly balancing the weight and maintaining the delicate equilibrium of your elaborate headwear. Every turn of your head, every slight inclination would be a carefully considered movement. This vividly illustrates the physical cost of upholding elite beauty standards. It wasn't just about looking the part, but enduring tangible discomfort and even pain as part of your daily presentation. The sheer effort required to prepare your hair for these hennins also highlights the physically demanding nature of conforming to these fashion ideals. The necessity of braiding and meticulously stuffing your hair up into the cone of a hennin, or even in more extreme styles, completely shaving the forehead area to create that vast uninterrupted expanse, were daily physically demanding efforts. This wasn't a quick morning routine. It was a dedicated, sometimes lengthy ritual. You might have a lady's maid to assist you, but the process itself, the pulling, the pinning, the smoothing, would be felt. It's a constant reminder that the illusion of effortless beauty is painstakingly constructed, often through discomfort and the sacrifice of your natural form. Yet despite the impracticality, there was an undeniable sensory richness to elite attire. Noblewomen's headwear adorned with embroidered gold thread, starched geometric shapes, and silken cages for their braids, complete with jewels and tiny bells, provided a multi-sensory experience of luxury. You could feel the rustle of silk against your skin, see the glint of gold catching the candlelight, and hear the subtle jingle of bells with every delicate movement. This wasn't just about visual appeal, it was about immersing yourself in the physical reality of wealth and status, a daily presentation that engaged sight, touch and sound. It was a lived experience of opulence, contrasting sharply with the mundane coarse fabrics worn by those below your station. As you move through the medieval world, the stark class distinctions are not only evident in grand architecture or lavish banquets, but also in the very fabric of daily attire driven powerfully by the era's beauty standards. Consider for a moment the visual contrast between the noblewoman, adorned with her elaborate towering hennin, and the commoner, perhaps a market woman or a serving maid. The commoner's headwear would be simpler, less dangerous, typically consisting of plain linen caps or modest veils. This isn't just a matter of taste. It illustrates how daily attire dictated by what was considered beautiful or appropriate for one's station visibly reinforced social stratification. You could tell at a glance who belonged where simply by looking at their head. This isn't to say that men were exempt from the physical demands of fashion. Their attire also imposed specific postural demands, creating an ideal body shape that required constant attention. Noblemen would often wear padded shoulders, giving them a broader, more imposing silhouette, and their tunics might be cinched at the waist to emphasize a lean, athletic torso. This wasn't merely about looking good, it was about projecting an image of power and authority. You'd quickly learn that a nobleman glided often with a hint of disdain, a graceful, almost arrogant movement that spoke volumes. Their physical presentation was a deliberate daily performance of status, a non-verbal assertion of their dominance and inherent superiority. They didn't just walk into a room. They commanded it with their very presence, a testament to the fact that even seemingly minor details of posture and clothing were meticulously curated for social effect. Beyond the visible aspects of fashion and form, you delve deeper into the core necessities of daily existence, and you find that diet and sustenance play a surprising role in shaping and reflecting medieval beauty ideals. The ideal female figure, as you recall, was described as slim, soft and slightly ethereal, almost otherworldly. This delicate physique was implicitly maintained through a sparse diet, a subtle but significant act of self-denial. Imagine the contrast with the hearty, often coarse meals consumed by labourers. To remain slender, you would find yourself consuming far less and far more selectively than your modern self might prefer. Medieval beauty manuals, those rare and precious texts, sometimes even offered specific dietary advice for achieving certain aesthetic outcomes. You might encounter recommendations to consume fennel for digestion, believed to aid in maintaining a slender figure and a clear complexion. Rose petals for breath suggests an early albeit rudimentary attempt at oral hygiene through diet, and the advice to drink wine to improve complexion speaks to the belief that certain beverages could impart a healthy glow. These specific consumption guidelines directly link certain foods and drinks to desired aesthetic outcomes in daily routines, highlighting a nascent understanding of the connection between diet and appearance, even if the scientific basis was lacking. You would follow these often bland or unpleasant dietary prescriptions with a quiet dedication knowing that they were contributing to your overall appearance, and by extension, your social standing. However, the reality for the vast majority of the population was far less glamorous. The widespread medieval diet for both commoners and even some nobility largely consisted of bread porridge and mead. This isn't just a historical fact, it's a daily lived experience. Imagine the coarse grains, the limited variety, the lack of fresh fruits and vegetables outside of season. This diet, while sustaining life directly, led to rampant tooth decay and pervasive bad breath. You'd witness and likely experience yourself the uncomfortable reality of teeth that were far from white or healthy, often discoloured, pitted, or even missing. The ideal of a healthy white smile as you understand it today was a true rarity against the uncomfortable, pervasive reality of oral issues that affected almost everyone. Your mouth in this era was a constant reminder of the challenging dietary conditions. You quickly realised that maintaining dental aesthetics in the medieval world was a losing battle, a daily struggle against the very food that sustained you. Even without the abundance of refined sugar that plagues modern diets, the basic starches from bread and porridge, the staples of every meal, broke down into tooth-tarnishing misery. Imagine the constant film, the persistent discoloration, the subtle ache of incipient decay. This underscores the universal unavoidable impact of daily diet on dental appearance and comfort. Your teeth, unfortunately, are a constant visible testament to the era's culinary realities, serving as a blunt counterpoint to any idealized notions of a perfect smile. Given these pervasive oral challenges, daily dental hygiene was by your modern standards rudimentary at best. You would likely engage in practices limited to wiping their teeth with cloth, a gesture that might remove some surface debris but little else. Perhaps you might rub them with chalk or crushed herbs, a desperate attempt to whiten or freshen. Chew sticks were also common used to scrape away plaque. These methods indicate a remarkably low standard of cleanliness, and as you might expect, often resulted in persistently unpleasant breath. The sensory reality is clear. You'd be constantly aware of the state of your own mouth and the mouths of those around you. The grim reality of medieval oral hygiene is perhaps best encapsulated by the rather desperate image of standing near a herb garden and hoping for the best, to achieve anything resembling minty freshness. There were no mouthwashes, no toothpastes, no dental floss. Your hopes for a pleasant breath were tethered to the natural aromas around you, a stark reminder of the often ineffective daily measures taken for oral hygiene. It's a small detail, but one that vividly paints a picture of constant low-level discomfort and the vast difference in personal care standards. Beyond diet and dental hygiene, you stumble upon the truly dangerous alchemy of beauty. Achieving that coveted pale skin, the very foundation of noble aesthetics, often involve the daily application of white lead powder. This isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a chilling reality. This toxic substance made from lead carbonate was known to cause a litany of horrifying symptoms. You might experience chronic fatigue, a persistent debilitating weariness that makes even simple tasks feel monumental. Your skin, the very canvas you were trying to perfect, could develop skin ulcers, open sores that refuse to heal. And in the most tragic of cases, this relentless pursuit of beauty could lead to premature death, highlighting the very real physical sacrifices made for beauty. Imagine the sensory detail of this slow, insidious poisoning. Your skin, once smooth and supple, might flake, blister, or fall off in small diplomatic chunks. This vivid, almost grotesque description conveys the physical degradation endured in the pursuit of beauty. You'd wake each morning knowing that the very substance you applied to your face could be slowly, inexorably destroying you from the inside out. Yet the social imperative to maintain that desired pallor was so strong that you or those around you would accept this terrifying reality as a part of life. The ideal beauty was literally worth dying for a macabre testament to the immense power of societal pressure. This chilling practice, however, was just one of many painful and crude grooming rituals you'd encounter. You recoil slightly at the thought of lead-based makeup, yet you discover that the painful and crude grooming rituals extended far beyond the application of toxic powders. The pursuit of that alabaster high-domed glory, the tall, smooth forehead devoid of eyebrows, involved a daily process of hair removal that would make your modern skin crawl. Imagine using tweezers, perhaps crude and unsharpened, to pluck individual hairs, or perhaps applying hot cloths to soften the skin and open pores before attempting to remove the stubborn hairs. But it gets more unsettling. You might resort to depilatory creams made from things like cat dung, quick lime, or vinegar-soaked leeches. Yes, cat dung. The sheer desperation and willingness to use such unhygienic and painful concoctions reveal the often brutal and unsanitary nature of personal care in the medieval era. The sting of quicklime, the unpleasant sensation of leeches attached to your brow, the lingering smell of unmentionable ingredients. These were the uncomfortable realities of maintaining a fashionable forehead. It was a testament to the fact that beauty was often achieved through physical discomfort and a remarkable tolerance for the unsavoury. And then there was the ongoing quest for golden hair, which you recall was the medieval gold standard often associated with the Virgin Mary's purity. This wasn't a casual preference, it was a dedicated pursuit utilising resourceful if unsanitary methods. You might spend hours sunbasking, lying out in the sun with your hair spread out sometimes for hours under careful protection of your skin. But the sun alone wasn't always enough. You'd learn of homemade concoctions passed down through generations, some of which contained urine. This detail, while jarring to your modern sensibilities, highlights the resourceful but often unsavoury methods used daily for cosmetic enhancement. Imagine the lingering scent, the texture, the sheer determination required to apply such a mixture, all for the sake of achieving a coveted hair shade. It underscores the lack of readily available safe alternatives, pushing individuals to use whatever was at hand, no matter how unappealing. Even your basic oral care was a testament to rudimentary practices. You might try to maintain some semblance of cleanliness by wiping their teeth with cloth, or rubbing them with chalk or crushed herbs, and using chew sticks. But these attempts were often futile. The sensory reality of constant bad breath, perhaps your own or that of others, was an inescapable fact of daily life. The air around you at close quarters would rarely be fresh. Given that bathing was technically optional and plumbing was mostly a dream, navigating a world without modern cleanliness standards became an exercise in ingenuity. Daily scent management was paramount, a constant battle against pervasive body odours that you and everyone around you produced. You wouldn't rely on a daily shower, for those didn't exist. Instead, you would become highly adept at masking unpleasant smells. This meant relying heavily on perfumed gloves, handkerchiefs, and scented combs. These items were not just fashion accessories. They were essential tools in your daily arsenal for creating a more pleasant personal aura. Imagine the subtle scent of lavender or rose emanating from your gloves as you greet someone, a deliberate attempt to counteract the less pleasant realities of the body. The portable smell shields, like the pomander filled with strongly scented herbs, offer a direct sensory insight into this daily battle. You might carry one discreetly, or perhaps wear it prominently, inhaling its fragrance to mask the less desirable ambient smells. It was a constant low-level effort to maintain an acceptable level of personal aroma, a constant background to every social interaction. The control of your scent became a silent yet powerful statement of your refinement, and consideration a vital part of your personal presentation in a world where true cleanliness was a luxury rarely achieved. And yet, despite these efforts, the reality of sweat was inescapable. You quickly discover that despite the elaborate efforts at scent management, the basic human reality of sweat was inescapable. Heavy medieval garments, often made of wool or multiple layers of linen, combined with the heat of summer months meant that people absolutely sweated. This wasn't a minor inconvenience, it was a pervasive bodily reality that you would deal with daily. There were no antiperspirants or light breathable fabrics as you know them. So what was the daily solution? The answer lay in clever practical adaptations of attire. People wore layers of linen directly against their skin. Linen, a natural fibre, was prized for its absorbency, and it could be washed more frequently than heavier outer garments made of wool or silk. Imagine the sensation of this inner layer designed to wick away sweat, protecting your more expensive outer clothing from stains and odours. It was a utilitarian approach to persistent bodily realities, a recognition that while you couldn't stop sweating, you could manage its immediate effects. You might change your linen undergarments daily, or at least every few days, a small but significant act of hygiene in an age of limited bathing. And speaking of bathing, or the lack thereof, you'd quickly become acquainted with the concept of dry bathing. When communal baths were curtailed due to various reasons, perhaps fear of disease or simply the logistical challenges of heating vast amounts of water, dry bathing became a common daily, albeit unrefreshing, compromise in personal hygiene. This involved wiping oneself down with a clean or as clean as possible cloth, sometimes spritzing scented water or applying scented powders. Imagine the sensation, a brief moment of coolness, a fleeting scent of herbs or flowers, but the lingering feeling of not being truly clean. It reflected the ongoing challenges of cleanliness in a world devoid of running water and daily washing routines, a testament to the persistent struggle against bodily realities. It's important to remember that personal care, while often more stringent for women due to aesthetic ideals, was not entirely absent for men. While perhaps less scrutinised for their complexion or the height of their headwear, noblemen also engaged in daily personal care rituals designed to uphold their image. They might use powders or skin treatments to maintain a clear complexion, though not necessarily for extreme paleness. For their hair, curling irons might be employed to style fashionable locks and beards, if worn would be meticulously groomed. This highlights that even male beauty ideals demanded a degree of daily effort, reinforcing their status as refined and powerful individuals. You'd see gentlemen carefully preening, ensuring their appearance was as impeccable as their lineage demanded a subtle display of their wealth and leisure. Now shifting your gaze from the intimate details of daily hygiene and dress, you recognise that these personal realities are underpinned by the foundational realities and overarching structure of the medieval world itself. This segment establishes the macro-level context of the historical period, defining the fundamental social hierarchy, the core economic base, and pervasive environmental realities that broadly influence the era's beauty standards. You've already touched upon the social hierarchy and its implications for paleness, but it's worth revisiting how inescapably this structure dictates every facet of life, including the nuances of beauty. In this world, your identity is not just about who you are, but where you stand. The bizarre, ambitious, and sometimes eyebrow-free world of medieval beauty standards is fundamentally shaped by an immutable social hierarchy. Your appearance is not just an aesthetic choice, it's a living, breathing class identifier. Looking pale, as you know, is the ultimate social flex, a clear signal of aristocratic leisure and distinction from the working classes. It's a non-verbal declaration of your birthright, a privilege woven into the very fabric of your skin, a silent language spoken by your very existence. You've learned that the colour of your skin is a powerful, inescapable class identifier in this medieval world. If your skin is tanned, kissed by the sun's relentless rays, it's a direct and undeniable indicator of outdoor manual labour, and by extension, poverty. For the nobility, witnessing a commoner with sun-darkened skin elicits a silent gasp, a visceral reaction to the visible marker of low social standing. This physical trait explicitly links appearance to one's humble, arduous position within the rigid feudal system. You realise that your complexion is a badge either of honour and leisure or of toil and subservience. There is no escaping this visual classification. For noble men, their appearance further solidifies this inherited right. The ideal male aesthetic, as you've observed, emphasises being nobly unbothered and hot without trying. This isn't about expensive grooming products or painstaking routines. It's about the deep-seated belief that attractiveness is an inherent birthright of the aristocracy. It's a natural emanation of their elevated status, something they simply possess rather than something they achieve through effort. This contrasts sharply with the commoner who might strive for a cleaner, healthier appearance through hard work, but could never attain the effortless grace of the noble. Their very being, their easy charm, is a constant reminder of their divinely ordained place at the top of the social pyramid. And then there's the hennin, that extraordinary piece of headwear that you've already encountered. It's not just a fashion statement, it's a literal social ladder you wore. The towering height of your hennin directly correlates to your higher status, physically elevating you within the visual landscape of the social hierarchy. Imagine looking up at a noble woman whose hennin seems to scrape the very ceiling of the great hall. Her elevated headwear is a constant visible reminder of her family's wealth influence and unassailable position. It's a vertical declaration of power, a symbol so overt that it leaves no doubt as to her standing. The immense pressure to maintain this visible distinction, this noble image, is further underscored by the existential threat of being mistaken for a peasant. The choice for nobility between dying slowly from lead makeup and being mistaken for a peasant encapsulates a profound fear. It's not just about personal pride, it's about the sheer social degradation associated with blurring class lines, a threat that could jeopardize the entire family's standing. Your face, your hands, your every visible part becomes a battleground where the fight to preserve noble identity is waged, often at the cost of your health. This stark reality drives home the point that in this world, appearance is survival. Beyond the social strata, your understanding of medieval beauty is also fundamentally shaped by the era's core economy and resource management. In this world, money doesn't just buy goods, it buys the very means to be beautiful. The pursuit of extreme paleness, for example, is not just an aesthetic choice, but an undeniable economic luxury. It requires you to have the means to avoid sun exposure, meaning you don't work outdoors, and the financial resources to afford expensive, often toxic beauty products, like white lead powder and crushed pearls. Only the truly wealthy can afford this aesthetic. Imagine the cost of ingredients that formed the core of medieval cosmetics. Mercury-based rouge, a vibrant red that would catch the eye. Red lead, another perilous but beautiful pigment. And cinnabar, a rich, deep red derived from mercury sulfide. These weren't readily available. They were costly imported luxury goods. Their use in beauty practices was exclusive to the wealthy, highlighting the stark economic stratification inherent in aesthetic choices. Your cosmetic bag, far more than a modern one, was a direct reflection of your family's coffers, a silent inventory of your economic power. It was another layer in the complex tapestry of how wealth dictated every aspect of life, including the very definition of beauty. You observe that in this medieval society, investing in beauty even at the cost of your health isn't mere vanity. It's a shrewd economic decision, a strategic investment in social capital. The willingness of the nobility to risk their well-being, even to die slowly from toxic lead makeup, underscores its critical role as a vital social investment. Maintaining a particular aesthetic was seen as necessary for preserving their perceived value and status within the economic framework of the era. It wasn't about personal preference, but about upholding the family's financial and social standing. Your beauty, or lack thereof, directly impacted your marriage prospects, your family's alliances, and ultimately your financial security. You were in essence a living, breathing asset whose perceived worth was inextricably linked to your adherence to these demanding beauty standards. And for noblemen, their ideal, effortless appeal was intrinsically tied to their inherited wealth. It wasn't about the latest fashion trends or personal grooming expenses. It was about the tangible assets that came with their lineage. Their attractiveness was directly linked to having land and a falcon, symbols of their economic power and aristocratic heritage. This signified that economic inheritance rather than personal grooming expenses formed the very foundation of their attractive image. They projected an aura of natural superiority, a man who didn't try to be appealing, because his wealth and status simply made him so. It's a stark reminder that in this world, beauty and economic power are often two sides of the same, very heavy, very expensive coin. Now you begin to grasp how nature's relentless fury and universal threats also powerfully influence the perception of beauty, often in unexpected and grim ways. This isn't a world that has conquered disease or famine. These are ever-present shadows capable of wiping out entire populations. The very concept of health, therefore, is subtly woven into the aesthetic ideal, particularly during times of widespread hardship. Consider the stark impact of famine and plague. During such periods, when the very survival of communities hung by a thread, extreme thinness became a chilling red flag. It didn't signify delicate grace, it signalled active dying. Imagine seeing someone reduced to skin and bone. Your immediate thought wouldn't be admiration, but fear and pity. This contrasts sharply with the beauty ideal of the time, which favoured a small hint of roundness. This wasn't about being overweight. It was about conveying health vitality and the tangible ability to survive winter's harsh realities and the ever-present threat of scarcity. A slight softness around the edges indicated that you were well-fed, robust enough to withstand the endemic illnesses and the lean seasons. It was a beauty born of survival, a testament to your ability to thrive when others might perish. The pervasive health realities of the medieval era further underscore this point. You'd encounter people daily with bloodshot, allergy-ridden eyes irritated by smoke dust and pollen. Perfect, sparkling eyes were a fleeting rarity. And as for teeth, the phrase actively terrifying springs to mind. Decay was rampant. Teeth were often missing or badly stained, and infections were common. These widespread health realities, constantly visible, meant that the idealized clear eyes and white teeth were truly exceptional rarities. They were a vision of beauty that defied the uncomfortable, often brutal truth of everyday existence. You learn to appreciate small imperfections, for they are the markers of shared human experience in a challenging world. You've explored the grand societal constructs and the minute details of daily life, but now you must confront the concrete mechanisms of power, control, and human response. This segment examines how beauty standards were not just preferences, but actively utilized as tools of governance, social control, and enforcement, sometimes intertwining with severe judgment, punishment, and even subtle acts of defiance. At the very top of this power structure, an unspoken rule dictated your behavior, particularly if you were a woman of any status. Never look more attractive than the local lord's wife. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a direct, albeit implicit, illustration of how beauty standards functioned as a subtle but potent mechanism of social control. To outshine the lady of the manor was to challenge her authority, her position, and by extension her husband's power. It reinforced unquestioning obedience within the power hierarchy. Imagine the constant internal calculus you'd make. How much rouge is too much? Is this new gown too flattering? You didn't want to draw undue attention, especially not the kind that might provoke the ire of those above you. This was a dangerous game of visual deference. The expectation for nobility to appear attractive without trying further reinforced their inherent right to power. This perception of effortless beauty implicitly conveyed that their attractiveness was a natural extension of their elevated status, a constant visual reminder of their authority. You as a commoner observing them would see their inherent grace and assume it was simply part of their noble blood, a divine blessing that justified their rule. It was a subtle yet powerful form of propaganda woven into the very fabric of their physical being, solidifying their dominion without overt displays of force. Even something as seemingly minor as posture became a deliberate display of power. A nobleman's refined posture, the way he carried himself with an almost regal bearing, and his manner of gliding often with a hint of disdain, was a subtle but clear performance of authority. He didn't just walk, he commanded the space he occupied, visibly demonstrating his elevated position and demanding respect without overt aggression. This was a man whose body language spoke of inherited power, a man who expected others to defer to him simply because of who he was. You'd instinctively recognize this visual cue and understand your place in relation to him. And while women's appearances were under far greater scrutiny, male beauty standards also reinforced the king's authority and courtly preferences. While men were not subjected to the same degree of cosmetic pressure as women, the male beauty standards of the court emphasized a well-groomed beard or a smooth, clean-shaven face that looked intentional. This wasn't about personal choice as much as it was about aligning with the monarch's aesthetic preferences. A king might favour a particular beard style, and his courtiers would quickly adopt it. This underscored the importance of image in reinforcing the ruler's aesthetic preferences and authority, ensuring that even the most powerful men presented themselves in a way that upheld the prevailing courtly ideals. Your appearance was a silent act of loyalty, a visual confirmation of your adherence to the established order. However, the intersection of beauty and power could also lead to troubling legal and enforcement mechanisms. A woman's perceived vanity, her choice to be wearing makeup, showing a bit of hair, or fluttering her lashes, could lead to severe social accusations. These accusations could range from being immoral to terrifyingly outright demonic. This demonstrated how aesthetic choices were policed not just by casual gossip, but by intense community judgment and even religious condemnation. The fear of being labelled a temptress or a witch, simply for enhancing your natural beauty, was a constant chilling undercurrent to your daily life. You discover that deviating significantly from the expected beauty norms or appearing too vain could have repercussions far beyond mere social ostracization. While not always formal legal judgments, these societal pressures served as potent deterrents. You might face harsh, albeit informal, social punishment, a consequence that could be as severe as a one-way ticket to a silent convent, or an unusually convenient illness. Imagine the terror of having your fate sealed by the whispers of the community, your perceived vanity leading to a forced life of piety, or even more chillingly, a sudden unexplained ailment. These informal enforcements underscore the immense power of social control where the collective judgment of your peers could dictate your very future, proving that the risk of being too beautiful was very real. In a deeply superstitious society where the line between natural and supernatural was constantly blurred, extreme or unusual beauty could also be deemed an illusion, a glamour conjured by witches. This was a terrifying thought, as it carried the risk of formal accusations similar to those for witchcraft. Imagine being brought before a tribunal, your captivating eyes, or unnaturally pale skin, cited as evidence of dark magic. This directly linked appearance to the justice system's pervasive fear of the unnatural, making your aesthetic choices potentially life-threatening. The most beautiful among you might unknowingly be walking a perilous path, their very allure inviting suspicion and condemnation from those who sought to explain the inexplicable through the lens of sorcery. Beyond the formal and informal mechanisms of control, you begin to perceive the profound influence of the shadow of death and honour as a primary form of societal control, particularly in relation to beauty. Your physical appearance was not just about living beautifully, it was about dying honourably. the willingness to die slowly from toxic lead makeup rather than being mistaken for a peasant, illustrates the profound connection between beauty, personal honour, and the calm, almost fatalistic acceptance of a destiny dictated by societal expectations. You understood that preserving your noble image, even if it meant a shortened, pain-filled life, was a testament to your family's honour and your unwavering commitment to your station. It was a macabre contract signed with your own skin. This chilling logic extends further the idea that one might die young, but I'll die pink-cheeked and socially respected, exemplifies how maintaining a specific beauty standard was interwoven with the concept of an honourable death. The ephemeral bloom of youth enhanced by dangerous cosmetics was not just about attracting a spouse, it was about presenting a perfect image for your final journey, ensuring that your last appearance was one of grace and status. The pursuit of beauty in this context becomes a form of fatalistic adherence to social norms, a quiet acceptance of mortality for the sake of reputation. Your demise too was a performance, and you intended to play your part beautifully. And then there was the pervasive belief that outward appearance reflected inner character. This cruel doctrine meant that ugliness, or any significant physical imperfection, could be interpreted not merely as misfortune but as punishment or divine disappointment. This served as a chilling form of societal control, implying that physical imperfections were not merely genetic but divine retribution for a lack of inner virtue. Now let's revisit the daily grind, the minute details of your personal realities, and see how they intertwine with the relentless pursuit of beauty. You've touched on housing, diet, and hygiene, but there are deeper layers to uncover in the uncomfortable and often surprising realities of your everyday life. Consider your basic living conditions and the shelter that serves as your home. Whether it's a grand manor or a simpler dwelling, you're constantly reminded of the pervasive impact of your environment on your beauty. The very structure of medieval homes, with their limited light and ventilation, and the ever-present smoke from hearth fires, created an atmosphere that necessitated constant vigilance over your appearance. You couldn't just throw open a window to air out a room. Instead, the stale, sometimes pungent air was a constant companion. This environment directly impacted your hair. Even if you were a noble woman, your hair, if exposed, would quickly become dull-heavy, with the scent of smoke and the fine particulate matter that hung in the air. This daily reality reinforced the practical need for protective headwear, particularly for married women. Those layered veils and wimples weren't just about modesty. They were crucial for shielding your hair from the omnipresent daily grime. Imagine the feeling of the fabric perhaps slightly stiff with starch around your head, forming a barrier against the airborne impurities. It was a constant, subtle effort to maintain the desired aesthetic of cleanliness and propriety, even when your surroundings conspired against it. The physical constraint of medieval fashion, particularly the pursuit of the delicate willowy figure, had a profound and constant impact on your comfort and mobility. The tight lacing and cinched waistlines that shaped the ideal silhouette were not for comfort. Your ribs shifted slightly, your diaphragm compressed. You learned to take shallower breaths to move with a more restricted gait. This was your daily reality, a subtle yet pervasive discomfort that became so normalized you might barely notice it after a while. It was the price of beauty, a constant physical reminder that your body was being molded to fit a societal ideal rather than being allowed its natural form. The persistent pressure around your midsection, the subtle ache in your back, these were the unspoken companions to your fashionable silhouette. The sensory detail of being a pious, well-bundled sandwich, due to your layered headwear, vividly conveys the physical restriction and warmth that was a common sensory experience for women in daily life. Imagine the feeling of wool or linen against your skin, the subtle rustle of fabric as you moved your head. In colder months, this added warmth might be a welcome benefit, but in summer, It would undoubtedly add to your discomfort, contributing to the inevitable perspiration. It was a constant negotiation between comfort and conformity, a daily commitment to an aesthetic that demanded sacrifice. And then there were the towering henins, those architectural marvels of headwear that reached upwards of 2 sefke with their intricate wire frames. These were not just worn for special occasions, they were part of your daily life as a noblewoman. The practical challenges were constant navigating narrow doorways, avoiding low-hanging candelabras, and the inevitable neck strain from balancing such a structure. You'd learn to duck, to turn sideways, to move with a deliberate, almost exaggerated caution. The literal collisions with door frames, the quiet curse muttered under your breath. When you misjudged a height, these were the small physical indignities of elite fashion. It's a powerful illustration of the physical cost, the daily physical toll of upholding an elite beauty standard. Your body quite literally paid the price for your status. You would discover that the daily struggle to maintain these elaborate headpieces, particularly the henins, extended to meticulous hair management. The necessity of braiding and stuffing your long hair up into the cone of a henin was a daily chore, sometimes a physically demanding one. Imagine the intricate process of coiling and securing your hair, perhaps with pins or ribbons, ensuring not a single strand escaped to disrupt the smooth line of the hennin. And as you've observed for those seeking the extreme high-domed forehead, the practice of even completely shaving the forehead area was a testament to the lengths individuals went to. This wasn't a minor adjustment. It was a significant alteration of your natural appearance, demanding consistent upkeep, highlighting the continuous physically demanding efforts required for women to conform to these rigid fashion ideals. Despite the obvious practical challenges, there was an undeniable allure and sensory richness to the elite attire you might wear daily. Noblewomen's headwear, far from being purely restrictive, was often a source of sensory delight. Adorned with embroidered gold thread, meticulously crafted into starched geometric shapes, and featuring silken cages for their braids that might hold jewels and even tiny bells, these pieces provided a unique sensory experience of luxury. You could feel the delicate rustle of silk as you moved, catch the subtle glint of gold thread in the flickering candlelight, and hear the soft, ethereal jingle of the tiny bells with every graceful turn of your head. These weren't just visual displays, they were an immersive multisensory affirmation of your wealth and status, a daily reminder of your elevated position. This focus on attire also clearly highlighted the distinct class distinctions in daily wear. The stark contrast between noblewomen's elaborate henins and commoners' simpler, less dangerous veils and linen caps was impossible to ignore. A commoner's head covering might be functional, protecting them from the sun or elements, but it lacked the intricate detail, the luxurious materials, and the sheer height that proclaim nobility. This visible difference in daily attire, driven fundamentally by the era's beauty standards, visibly reinforced social stratification. You were constantly aware of your place in the world, and the clothing you wore, particularly on your head, was a constant public declaration of that fact. Even for men, fashion dictated specific postural demands, creating an ideal body shape that required constant attention. Noblemen wore padded shoulders that broadened their frame and cinched tunics that emphasized a lean waist, projecting an image of power and athletic grace. This wasn't merely a stylistic choice, it was deliberate performance. A nobleman glided often with a hint of disdain, a smooth, almost arrogant movement that conveyed his effortless superiority. His refined posture and bearing made physical presentation a deliberate daily performance of status, a non-verbal assertion of his dominance, an inherent right to command respect. You wouldn't see a nobleman slouching. His very frame was a testament to his social standing. Now let's turn our attention back to a fundamental aspect of daily life diet and sustenance, and how they quietly yet profoundly shaped medieval beauty standards. You've heard about the preference for a slim, soft and slightly ethereal female figure. This cultivated image of fragility was implicitly maintained through a sparse diet. Imagine that your beauty manuals, if you were fortunate enough to possess one, suggested a regimen of honey-water courtly poems and perhaps one fig a week, rather than robust, hearty nourishment. It was an aesthetic that discouraged hearty eating, favouring a delicate, almost starved appearance that set you apart from those who had to eat heavily to fuel their physical labour. This wasn't about health. It was about appearance as a marker of class, a deliberate avoidance of any physique that suggested strength or manual work. Your plate, or lack thereof, spoke volumes about your leisure and refinement. You now understand that achieving the ideal, slim, soft and slightly ethereal figure meant a conscious daily act of dietary sacrifice. It wasn't about health or physical prowess, but about cultivating a fragile appearance that distinguished you from the robust physique of the labouring classes. Your daily meals would likely be sparse, a deliberate choice to maintain a figure that spoke of leisure and refinement rather than one built for physical exertion. This was a form of self-discipline, a quiet adherence to an unspoken rule that dictated how you nourished your body. Even within this constrained diet, medieval beauty manuals might offer specific advice linking certain foods to desired aesthetic outcomes. You might, for example, be encouraged to consume fennel for digestion, not just for its medicinal properties, but for its purported ability to maintain a slender figure and clear complexion. Rose petals for breath suggest a rudimentary yet persistent effort to combat the ubiquitous bad breath of the era, a small attempt at refinement in a world lacking modern oral hygiene. And the advice to drink wine to improve complexion points to the belief that certain beverages could impart a healthy youthful glow, even if the underlying science was more superstition than fact. These practical dietary recommendations woven into daily routines highlight a constant subtle effort to manipulate your body for aesthetic purposes using whatever resources and knowledge were available. However, the brutal reality for the common folk and even segments of the nobility was that their widespread medieval diet of bread, porridge and mead had profoundly negative consequences for oral health. You'd observe and likely experience yourself the direct impact of these staple foods, rampant tooth decay and pervasive bad breath. Imagine the constant dull ache of cavities, the sensitivity to hot and cold, the social discomfort of unpleasant breath. The ideal of a healthy white smile was for most an unattainable dream, existing only in idealized paintings or in the minds of poets. This was the uncomfortable reality that stood in stark contrast to any romanticized notions of medieval life. The daily challenges to dental aesthetics were relentless. Even without the modern scourge of refined sugar, the basic starches that formed the foundation of the medieval diet broke down into tooth-tarnishing misery. Bread porridge and other grain-based foods left residues that contributed to plaque and decay, making healthy white teeth a rare sight. You'd constantly feel the effects of this, perhaps running your tongue over rough-stained surfaces or experiencing the fleeting pain of a developing cavity. It underscores the universal unavoidable impact of daily diet on dental appearance, and comfort a constant low-level physical burden that everyone shared. Given these challenges, daily dental hygiene was by your modern standards woefully inadequate. Your efforts would be limited to wiping their teeth with cloth, a rudimentary attempt to remove surface debris. You might occasionally rub them with chalk or crushed herbs in a desperate attempt to whiten or freshen your breath, or chew on chew sticks to scrape away plaque. These practices, while better than nothing, indicated a low standard of cleanliness and often resulted in persistently unpleasant breath. The sensory reality of constant halitosis, your own and that of others, was an inescapable fact of medieval life, making even close conversations a less than pleasant experience. And that desperate, almost comedic attempt to achieve minty freshness by standing near a herb garden and hoping for the best encapsulates the often futile measures taken for oral hygiene. There were no dental professionals, no fluoride, no advanced tools. Your only hope was to rub your teeth with natural abrasives or inhale the faint scent of growing herbs. It's a small detail, but one that powerfully conveys the constant struggle against the limitations of medieval personal care, a testament to the fact that true freshness was an almost mythical concept. Beyond the realm of diet and dentistry, you discover the truly dangerous alchemy that underpinned the pursuit of medieval beauty, particularly for the noble classes. The aspiration for that translucent porcelain with vascular undertones, the signature pale skin often involved the daily application of white lead powder. This wasn't merely a cosmetic, it was a highly toxic substance, and its pervasive use paints a chilling picture of the sacrifices made for beauty. You'd be aware perhaps through the hushed whispers of your household, or through your own worsening symptoms, that this lead-based makeup caused insidious and devastating health problems. It led to chronic fatigue, a pervasive weariness that dulled your energy and spirit, making even the simplest daily tasks feel monumental. More alarmingly, your very skin, the canvas you were trying to perfect, could develop skin ulcers, open sores that resisted healing, and left disfiguring marks. In the most tragic and extreme cases, this relentless exposure to lead could lead to premature death. This horrifying reality highlights the very real physical sacrifices that were routinely made for the sake of beauty, a silent agreement to trade health for social status and aesthetic conformity. Your very life, it seemed, was a negotiable price in the pursuit of the ideal medieval complexion. Imagine the unsettling sensory detail your skin under the influence of this corrosive substance might literally flake blister or fall off in small diplomatic chunks. This vivid, almost gruesome description brings home the physical degradation endured in the relentless pursuit of beauty. You'd wake each morning inspecting your reflection not just for flaws, but for the subtle signs of decay that this very makeup was inflicting. The constant vigilance, the quiet fear of disfigurement was a daily companion, a grim backdrop to your elaborate morning routine. The painful and crude grooming rituals extended far beyond lead application. To achieve that coveted alabaster high-domed glory, the smooth, eyebrowless forehead, you'd endure a rigorous daily process of hair removal. This involved the use of crude tweezers, perhaps even hot cloths to loosen the follicles. But the truly unsettling methods involved depilatory creams made from things like cat dung quicklime or vinegar-soaked leeches. The raw burning sensation of quicklime, the squirming sensation of leeches, the truly unsavoury odours of animal waste. These were the unpleasant realities of daily personal care. This reveals the often painful and unsanitary nature of medieval beauty practice as a testament to the fact that looking beautiful often meant enduring significant physical discomfort and even disgust. And the quest for blonde hair, the medieval gold standard, involved equally resourceful if unsanitary methods. You might spend hours sunbasking, your hair spread out to catch the sun's rays, perhaps with some homemade concoction, applied to accelerate the lightening process. The detail that some recipes also included urine, which was thought to help lift colour, is jarring, but it vividly illustrates the extremes to which individuals went. This wasn't a choice for comfort or hygiene. It was a dedicated, sometimes unpleasant daily ritual to achieve a highly coveted aesthetic, highlighting the lack of safe, effective alternatives available in the era. In a world where bathing was technically optional and plumbing was mostly a dream, daily scent management became paramount. You couldn't rely on a quick shower or a change of clothes. Instead, you navigated a world permeated by pervasive body odours from yourself and others. This meant relying on an arsenal of perfumed gloves, handkerchiefs, and scented combs to mask the unpleasant realities. These items were your portable defence, small bastions of fragrance in a less-than-fresh world. You learn quickly that in a world without modern sanitation, your daily struggle against pervasive odours was constant. The portable smell shields, like the pomander filled with strongly scented herbs, became an indispensable part of your daily life. You might carry one discreetly, or perhaps wear it prominently, bringing it to your nose whenever an unpleasant aroma wafted too close. This subtle yet constant attention to controlling your personal aroma was a critical non-verbal strategy, influencing social proximity and perceived refinement. It was a silent yet powerful social statement, a testament to your efforts to maintain an aura of grace and cleanliness in a challenging environment. And despite all these efforts to mask or mitigate the reality of sweat was inescapable. Heavy medieval garments, especially during the summer months, meant people absolutely sweated. This wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was a fundamental bodily reality you would deal with daily. The solution lay in practical adaptations, layers of linen worn directly against the skin. Linen was chosen for its absorbency, effectively wicking sweat away from the body and protecting the more expensive outer garments. These linen undergarments could be washed more frequently, providing a practical, albeit rudimentary, solution to persistent bodily realities. You would feel the dampness, the stickiness, but the linen would at least keep it from soaking through to your visible clothing. When communal baths became less common, perhaps due to disease or logistical issues, the practice of dry bathing became a daily, albeit unrefreshing, compromise in personal hygiene. This involved wiping oneself with a cloth, perhaps spritzing a bit of scented water, but never achieving the full refreshing cleanse of a true bath. Imagine the sensation, a brief moment of cool dampness followed by the lingering feeling of not being entirely clean. It reflected the ongoing challenges of cleanliness in an age without modern plumbing, a testament to the daily struggle to maintain some semblance of personal freshness. Even noblemen, though less outwardly adorned than women, engaged in daily personal care routines. While they might not be applying lead makeup, they certainly used powders or skin treatments to maintain a clear complexion. Their hair, often styled, might require curling irons for fashionable waves or precise partings. If a beard was in vogue, it would be meticulously groomed, perhaps trimmed and oiled daily. This highlights that male beauty ideals, while different from female ones, also demanded a degree of daily effort, reinforcing their status as refined and powerful individuals. The attention they paid to their appearance, however subtle, was a quiet display of their leisure and their adherence to courtly standards. You've journeyed through the complex layers of medieval beauty standards, from their deep roots in social hierarchy and economic realities, to their daily manifestation in clothing, diet, and hygiene. You've seen how they were enforced through social judgment and superstition, and how they subtly influenced personal identity and family honour. This medieval world, while distant, offers a fascinating mirror to enduring human desires for status, acceptance, and self-expression, even in the face of harsh realities. The standards may seem alien, even extreme, but the underlying human impulse to beautify and to conform to signal one's place in the world through appearance remains constant across the centuries. You've experienced the silent language of paleness, the strictures of the hennin, and the terrifying dance with lead powder, all quietly weaving into the tapestry of everyday life. As the centuries melt away, you can almost hear the faint rustle of silk, the distant jingle of tiny bells, and the quiet whispers of a world where beauty was both a blessing and a burden, a profound reflection of the very fabric of society. As the last echoes of the medieval world gently fade, allow your mind to drift back to the quiet comfort of your own space. The flickering candlelight of an ancient hall gives way to the steady glow of your modern lamp, the rough textures of linen and wool replaced by the softness of your blankets. You can almost feel the weight of those elaborate hennins lift from your head, the imagined tightness of a corseted waist loosening, allowing for a deep, free breath. The worries of lead makeup and cat dung depilatories are distant whispers, now belonging to a time where the very definition of beauty was inextricably linked to hardship and sacrifice. Take a moment to appreciate the simple luxuries of your present moment, the ease of modern hygiene, the abundance of safe cosmetics, the freedom to choose your appearance without the crushing weight of a feudal system or the fear of divine judgment. Let the quiet hum of the modern world lull you, a soft contrast to the clamour of medieval existence. The struggles for status, the pursuit of an ideal aesthetic. They happened centuries ago, fascinating and strange, but now they are just stories gently guiding you towards rest. As the historical drifts settle, let your thoughts quiet your body, relax, and your breath deepen. The past has delivered its lessons, and now it's time for peace.